it's great, and hopefully you'll all survive Storm Dudley tonight. So just I thought it was interesting just for myself to have a look at some key facts about our two organizations. The first is we're a group, and you guys in the Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust are a trust, so I'm not actually sure what significance that has. But I was just saying earlier to Siobhan that when we established in 1990, the Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust didn't actually exist. And had the group actually existed back in 1990, it may well have been that we would have followed perhaps a more parallel trajectory than we have. Back then it was Sea-Watch Foundation, who also worked very, very closely with Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust, or the WDCS, and they tend to be very different in their nature. WDCS kind of very much more into advocacy and campaigning back then, whereas Sea-Watch Foundation were very much more kind of closely aligned to what we wanted to do. Just our remit is the island of Ireland, which obviously includes Northern Ireland, but we won't get too political. Your remit is probably the whole of the western approach of Scotland. And I was just looking at that on a map. If you draw a line around the entire island of Ireland, it's give or take about 1,600 kilometers. That's not including the bays and the estuaries and around the little islands and stuff. And you guys, I reckon, are something like 800-900 square kilometers. If you draw a big box around Mull and extended south down towards Port Patrick and all the way north up towards the northern sort of Hebridean Sea, that's a big box you guys have to cover, you know. So we're both kept very, very busy. Our head office is in Kilrush on the west of Ireland, County Clare. Yours is obviously, well, you know where you are, on the east coast of Mull. We both have boats. We have a fine sailing vessel. So we have the Celtic Mist, which we only took hold of in 2011. You got Silurian, I gather, in 2002. So you've got about a decade more experience than we do. But as Sadie said to me on an email yesterday, it took you guys about a year to get your protocols up and running. We're still trying to get our protocols running a decade later. But we are really starting to put the Celtic Mist to really good use. Up to an event in 2016, we both were stuck on 24 cetacean species, and that's cetacean species that have been recorded by, well, for us anyway, both sightings and including stranded cetaceans, animals that have washed up on our beaches. That changed in 2016. Talk more about that later. And then we've got personnel. There has been a certain amount of exchange of personnel over the years. We've had Conor Ryan, our science officer, head over to you guys around 2013, I think 2014, and he's now gone on to much greater things. He's left us all. And we've got your current science officer, Becky, coming over to us in a couple of weeks. So, and that's healthy, you know, because, you know, it's all about sharing experience, and Becky's going to bring a sort of huge amount of experience from Western Scotland over to us. So we're really excited about seeing it. And the guys in the Kilrush office, the girls in the Kilrush office are really looking forward, because mostly girls in the Kilrush office, apart from Simon. Anyway, so we were established in 1990, and basically the core aims of the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group was to set up recording schemes so that we could monitor cetaceans in Irish waters. So the two schemes are the sighting scheme and the stranding scheme. I'm involved in the sighting scheme, so I'm the sightings officer. So I coordinate and validate all records from all Irish waters of all cetacean species, and including basking sharks, because as we all know, basking sharks aren't fish, they're whales. They're kind of like honorary whales, if you like. I know this has been recorded, so I have to clarify that. So yeah, so we record basking sharks as well, and a few other rare pinniped species that turn up, just because we've got a really good network for doing that. We also record strandings, but I'm not going to focus on strandings or to talk much about strandings at all today, because Nikki gave such a good presentation last week, Nikki Clear, on strandings. But unfortunately, you know, strandings and sightings, they're kind of opposite sides to the same coin, if you like. You can't, no point running one scheme without the other, because in our experience, the strandings sometimes give us, you know, help us fill in all those little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that are missing. So two important schemes that run sort of concurrently. So just taking a look there at sightings, you can see when we started back in 1990, I think it's interesting because this is like just over 30 years. This is 32 years of sightings, 31 years of sightings data. So if you look at it in 10-year chunks, you can see for the first decade, you know, I'm sure Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust were the same. First decade, you're ambling along and you're finding your way and you're trying to make an impression. And then it seems for the second decade, what happens is like agencies and government realize, oh God, yeah, well, these guys aren't going away. We were kind of hoping they would go away, but they're actually still here. So yeah, we better give them some money because say the EU is kicking our butts over the EU Habitats Directive and the like. So then state agencies throw money at you because they have to. And then the recording schemes respond accordingly. They, you know, sightings go up because they're giving you money to maintain the schemes and to grow the schemes and to train people. And then, of course, they stop giving you money because, oh, well, we gave you the money the last 10 years, and they don't realize that what you've done is you then create a monster. And of course, you've now got this monster out in the backyard and it needs to be fed. But so what happens is then things can flatline a little bit, and then even, you know, sightings or stranding records might start to decline. In the last couple of years, we've just built up this fantastic team. We've got new, so you can see what's happened here. We've had 3 consecutive years of growth in our recording sightings, and we think a big part of that is down to our new reporting app, which we launched last year. So if you're a member of the public, citizen scientist, and you want to report your sightings to the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group, you've a number of options, both digital. One is recording your sighting on the portal on our website or on our new reporting app. I think they're kind of reaching out to different sort of social demographics and age groups. So you can see how many sightings we're getting this year. Last year was our best ever with 2,500 sightings. This chart will give you an idea of what species we're seeing. And I am kind of curious. You've got our usual suspects there. If you did a pie chart, Siobhan or Morven for Euro for 2020, my guess is it wouldn't be a whole lot different. You know, bottlenose dolphins coming in first. Now that's unusual for us because typically it'd be harbor porpoises. So this and it's, you know, might talk a bit about what's happening there, but coming in then, so usually harbor porpoises would be first. Bottlenose and common dolphins would be kind of almost joint second. And then you got your minke, humpback, fin whale, basking shark, Risso's dolphins coming in as well. But you probably include the likes of killer whales or orcas, whereas, you know, they are much scarcer on the ground than they are here, than they are, no doubt, with you guys in the Western Isles, you know. But I'm just curious, would that be, maybe you'd throw in killer whales and you might take out fin whales, my guess?
Killer whales, you know, they're still quite a rare one. I would actually say harbor porpoise, hands down, you know, most commonly sighted, then probably common dolphin and minke whale.
Yeah.
And bottlenose dolphins would definitely come in like fourth here on the West Coast. Oh. East Coast Scotland, bottlenose dolphins would be way up there, but here, yeah, you know, bottlenose dolphins in that number would be quite surprising for us.
That's interesting. So there was just one day last year where there just seemed to be lots of bottlenose dolphin sightings coming in. So I just decided I'd plot them. And we had on one day, April the 13th last year, we had bottlenose dolphins sightings validated in 6 coastal counties: Waterford, Kerry, Clare, Galway, Antrim, and County Down, which I thought was kind of interesting, a big bottlenose dolphin day. And not all of these are Irish bottlenose dolphins. I mean, there's a certain exchange in our animals, and this is maybe perhaps answering in part what Alistair was asking you there at the start. This was probably one of the world's most famous, most instantly recognizable bottlenose dolphins called Spurtle, who got these injuries or this bizarre pigmentation from live stranding in the Murray Firth area, because he's one of the Murray Firth population, which is one of only 4 resident populations of bottlenose dolphins anywhere in Europe. Scotland has one in the Murray Firth, Wales have Cardigan Bay, we've got the Shannon Estuary. But on occasion, we do get Scottish animals. So here's an East Scottish animal that spent 6 months, 5 or 6 months here, arrived in May, was seen right until September, October, then disappeared until Charlie Phillips photographed them just the week before Christmas, back in his home base on the 17th of December. So there is this wonderful exchange. The big question for us was always that Spurtle always was seen to be leading a subgroup of bottlenose dolphins. So what we were anxious to know were the rest of this pod he was with, or she, Spurtle is probably female, was the rest of the group actually also Scottish, or had Spurtle just taken over the leadership of an Irish subpod of bottlenose dolphins? But a really interesting couple of months tracking this really identifiable and recognizable animal. Of course, the wonderful thing about a sighting scheme is that it records lots of the usual species in common scenarios, but it's also really useful for detecting unusual species. And I guess these are extremely rare. The beluga whale, the white whale, probably marginally less so for you guys, and less so again if you go up to Orkney or Shetland, where they probably get belugas every couple of years. But we've had only 3 or 4 sightings going back centuries in Irish waters of beluga whales, but this was our most recent one, not too far from you guys, off the Northampton coast there in 2015. This is the animal that I was referring to that gave us our 25th species, a bowhead whale. And it was kind of very interesting, because we had been stuck on 24 species for 24 years, and on our 25th anniversary, this whale turns up, was reported to one of the local whale watching boats, and they sent me the images to say, what the heck do you think this is? Myself and Calvin Jones were looking at the pictures, and we kind of said, that's a bowhead whale. So our first record of a bowhead, we may have had another one the following year, but the images just weren't sharp enough to help us confirm species. So we're now on 25, and you're still stuck on 24. But we might have to wait another 25 years to increase that by 1. So it can be a long wait. Last year, our most interesting sighting wasn't even a cetacean; it was a pinniped, a rare Arctic vagrant. But it's a real sign of the times that we are getting more and more of these Arctic vagrants showing up in Irish waters. And of course, this animal was then linked from these marks, these pale shape or scar on his left front flipper. But he was tracked to Wales, and then, well, the story was kind of just a brilliant story of collaboration between individuals, researchers, NGOs, and citizen scientists, because he went across the South Pembrokeshire and Wales, then down to Cornwall, then tracked down the French Atlantic coast until he went down to northern Spain, Bilbao, Santander, then came back to us. Why, in the name of God, he came back to us? But it was just a stepping stone, obviously, for further north. So when he came back to us during the summer, he spent 2 or 3 months here along the south coast and the southwest, and then 2 months later, he turns up in southeastern Iceland. So this walrus had traveled through 5 countries over space of about 5 months and over 5,000 kilometers. So absolutely amazing, but it shows the ability nowadays with technology and with instant messaging and with digital photography. Everything has changed in the biological recording of cetaceans and I guess marine mammals in general. So my journey, and I should have, I haven't actually timed this. So if you guys have all gone to sleep and you're putting the kettle on, just tell me to shut up and I'll stop at any stage. But my journey began down in a place called the Old Head of Kinsale down in West Cork. I had been living up in Dublin. I moved down to West Cork, and I remember being so disappointed. My first watch off this amazing Atlantic promontory, I saw 2 harbour porpoises, and I just felt slightly underwhelmed, because to be honest with you, I used to watch harbour porpoises when I was commuting into Dublin on the city centre rapid train service, the DART. So to come back to this place that I just had a feeling, something was telling me this place is worth watching from. And on my second watch, everything changed. So here it is in West Cork, the old head of Kinsale. And 4 years later, we had just accumulated thousands of sightings. But what did it for me on my second watch, about 4 days later, was I counted consecutive blows, 148. I remember 100, 101, 102, 100, 148, and then it stopped. Blows, peppering the horizon, way out in the distance. And I thought to myself, in my naivety, I thought, of course, that meant that there were 148 whales. But after a while, after about an hour, I realized that there was a gap in that sequence of surfaces. And that gap kept giving me a number of 18 or 19. And what I had was 18 or 19, who knows, close to that number, fin whales, the planet's second largest animal. And I knew from that moment that I was in trouble. I knew from that moment that I wasn't going to go back to working in Civvy Street, that there was a body of work that needed to be done. And I guess that's why, you know, sort of so many years later, I'm still involved in, you know, cetacean recording. But, you know, it's, you know, the inshore coastal waters off the Irish south and southwest coast now are now considered to be critically important feeding habitat for a range of large baleen whale species, predominantly minkies, humpbacks, and fin whales. And you might be able to see there a couple of sprats jumping out of the in between the baleen plates of these fin whales. But when I was a youngster, I watched an ITV documentary. We used to get ITV back then, and it must have been the late 70s or the early 80s. And it was called The Hunters of the Silver Shoals. And maybe it's available somewhere, but it was all filmed up off Sumber Head in Shetland and Orkney. And it was my first time as a kid seeing footage in, if you like, the British Isles. And I'm obviously including Ireland in that sort of geographic term. And it blew me away. It wasn't that it was spectacular, National Geographic, you know, BBC Natural History Unit. I mean, by today's comparisons, it was rubbish. But what was really important was the message. You know, they had footage of humpback whales feeding off Sumber Head. They had pilot whales. They brought it all in. And to me, that documentary explained better than anything I've ever seen since the importance of protecting the feeding ecology, protecting the basic fish, the small pelagic little forage fish that are rarely bigger than that. And I will talk more about it. But I'm not quite sure why I threw that in, but I did want to get, if you get a chance to see it, it was called Hunters of the Silver Shoals. And it was all about the decimation, I guess, of the sand eel stocks up in Scotland at the time. It's still going on. It's something that really needs to be addressed. So, you know, for us here in the Irish Whale and Dolphin, Sprat is a big conversation that we're having here at the moment. And we just allow these big, and they're not foreign owned. These are all Irish boats. We're doing it all ourselves, and we're converting all of these. Certainly 99% of Sprat landed in Ireland is being converted into fish meal to feed, you know, salmon in cages in northern Spain, Scotland, Norway. So, you know, we're removing these critically important small pelagic shoaling fish to feed, you know, sort of farmed animals. It's ecological madness, if you like. Makes absolutely no sense. And it basically needs to stop. So that's a big part of what's engaging with us. Also, you know, and this is where the data is useful. You know, without data, it's very difficult to make a conservation case to fight against, you know, these issues. So, you know, the data comes first. So we'll never apologize for being so mono-focused, if you like, on gathering data. Obviously, Nikki discussed these issues really well last week on her presentation. Entanglement, I know it's a big topical issue at the moment in Scotland, but here you have a humpback, and that line behind it, it's anglers fishing for bluefin tuna. They're trawling lures along the surface because they've seen a bait ball of sprat or sand eels or herring, and they decide to trawl a lure through it The only problem is the humpback whale has seen the same bait ball, and there's bait balls all over the place, but why choose a bait ball with a darn humpback whale feeding on it, you know? So it is a question of education rather than, you know, being too preachy about these things. Here's a humpback whale that my colleague Nick Massett photographed several times, and every time he photographed it down off the Blaskets in West Kerry, it's picked up more and more injuries between July, September. This is October, but you can see it's actually got blood marks, little subcutaneous bleeding marks on around its, the dorsal surface of its flukes there, and it's picked up lots more scarring. So, you know, even for the 3 months that this humpback whale was here feeding in West Kerry, it's every couple of weeks this humpback whale is getting entangled in fishing gear. It's just crazy. And, you know, ultimately, if these situations, you know, they can lead to mortality events, which is just tragic. Now, this was a historic animal, an old animal that passed in 2004, but you can see it's obviously its pectoral fin is caught there in a lobster pot rope. And it's effectively drowned. So nowadays, and Nikki talked very eloquently about this last week, and about the measures that were, you know, that all governments are looking at implementing to, you know, prevent these events from taking place. Noise pollution, very topical in the last couple of weeks, especially given that the Russians announced that they were going to have a major naval exercise a week or two ago off the Porcupine Sea Bight down here in our offshore waters. So we're all kind of very anxious to know. We've got big Storm Dudley and Eunice coming in now. Does that mean if these military exercises actually took place, does that mean we can expect to see more northern bottlenose whales and deep diving beaked whales washing up on our beaches? Hopefully not. But these are the sort of main conservation issues that the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group are concerned with. And my guess is they're probably not hugely different to the conservation issues facing colleagues in the Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust. So I'm essentially a whale watcher. It's what I do. I've spent 30 years traveling around the world, watching whales and observing whales and working on whale projects and the like. But when myself and Simon Barrow started this, you know, back in the early 1990s, we were kind of largely considered to be lunatics. We were kind of almost on the lunatic fringe, if you like, of the bird watching community, and spending our time up on the cliffs. And that was fantastic because we had the cliff tops to ourselves. Now when we go whale watching, we generally have people coming whale watching with us. But whale watching has gone from being something quite obscure, very much on the fringes, to something that's kind of become a more mainstream whale or wildlife activity. And that's promoted through courses and workshops and events like All Ireland Whale Watch Day, which we run every year, which is a fantastic event that tends to take place during August. Hopefully we'll be able to run it this year for the first time since COVID, now that we seem to be coming out the back end of this pandemic. We run courses. These courses are all designed about, you know, we love the idea of getting people for a weekend, especially on an offshore island, where you've got them captive, they can't escape you. And it's always a combination of indoor workshops, field trips up onto the cliffs, and then boat trips as well. And it's about giving people the confidence, giving people the field skills, so they themselves can go out up onto cliff tops or out onto boats and observe and learn about what species they're watching, how to identify them, and how to report their sightings back to the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group. And in parallel with this, I guess, commercial whale watching was always likely to become quite a thing here. And the pioneer of commercial whale watching in Ireland, certainly down here in the southwest, will always be Colin Barnes. Up in the north, up off Donegal, you'd have had characters like Des Mills who would have taken people out. But today we kind of look to Colin Barnes as being the early pioneer of commercial whale watching in Ireland. And if you like, Colin would be to Ireland, I guess, what Richard Fairbairn would have been back in the late 1980s. I think actually Richard gave up fishing or angling around 1989. Colin would have got diversification grants from the Irish government to come away from commercial fishing to diversify. And for Colin, he had just spent you know, a career of 25, 30 years fishing, but watching whales and dolphins in West Cork and enjoying them. So for him, there was only one thing he was going to do, and he was so well cut out for it. And, you know, to this day, there's actually nobody really with Colin's ability to find whales that aren't there. To be honest with you, anybody can find whales when there's lots of whales around, but when whales aren't to be found, Colin's the sort of guy you want to go out with. And he has put thousands of people right in the heart of where whales are happening. And if you want to film them or research them as well, it's a great platform. But nowadays there are towns like, you know, Baltimore, who market themselves on, you know, being the whale watch capital of Ireland, which of course is nonsense. No one town or coastal village is a capital of anything. But, you know, whale watching has gone really full circle now to become really quite a thing to do when visitors come to Ireland. It's generally on that all-important bucket list for people. And of course, that has concerns, you know, where, you know, whale watching needs to be well managed. It needs to be sustainable. There need to be guidelines in place. So a bit of the carrot and stick approach is required. So just to, you know, these are what I would call our usual suspects, and you'll be very familiar with certainly pretty much all of these, I guess, in West Scotland. Yeah, most years the wee harbour porpoise here. We've got a couple of nice Irish or Gaelic names for them. There's the book Irish version, if you like, that the kids learn in schools, and they call them the Muckamara or the sea pig. But they have a lovely name for the harbour porpoise down in the Kerry Gaeltacht. And the Gaeltacht is an area where Irish is still spoken, where they're referred to locally by the old fishermen as an tohinoch, which translates as the wee fat fella. So quite charming. Common dolphins, bottlenose, rissos, and of course there's that big fish there, the basking shark, which is our honorary whale, minkies, humpbacks, and fin whales. So there, if you like, there are our usual suspects. I'm just going to keep a check on. My God, Mickey was finished in about 2 minutes' time. I better hurry up. But our offshore diversity is quite different. And as you go offshore, obviously, you get to see a whole different diversity of species out in places like the porcupine sea bite or the rockall trough. I mean, that's where you get your deep divers, your pilot whales, your sperm whales, even your blue whales along the 700-meter depth contour. So there's a nice picture. And of course, these are places that you can't really get to. I mean, you can't just go out in your Raber on a whale watching boat 120 miles offshore. So it's only the likes of people who are especially out there on research vessels, or the Irish maritime units, which are, if you like, the Irish equivalent of the RAF, but they're out there monitoring Ireland's EEZ, exclusive economic zone, out to 200 miles. And they send us in these amazing photographs of the likes of sperm whales here. And, you know, blue whales are, especially during, it seems, late summer, August, there have been reasonably consistent sighting records with photographs of blue whales. Again, the common denominator seems to be depth of somewhere between 500 and 1,000 meters. So the word 700 keeps coming up in conversation regarding blue whales. And when the Celtic Mist took its very first inaugural trip, Patrick Lyne went out. We got a group of volunteers, IWDG members, went out onto the shelf edge, and the very first morning they woke up, first cup of coffee in, and they looked out. There were fin whales blown all over the place, and almost the second whale they saw on the very first day that we fired the Celtic Mist in anger, we had a blue whale. It's just like, don't think it's seen any since, but that was just beginner's luck, if you like. But just an amazing auspicious start for the Celtic Mist. This wonderful picture taken by Mick Baines, who was on a seismic survey vessel. Just quickly, some of the research we do, the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group involved intermittently in biopsy sampling. It's invasive, so it's done, biopsy sampling is carried out under license and carried out with a crossbow. And you can see where the bolt hits the flank of the animal, takes a very small little skin plug, and that gives us a whole range of sort of data that can be analyzed for stable isotopes and the like, and even things like giving you gender of animals. So that's kind of ongoing work on a range of species over here. Obviously, acoustic monitoring. is important, and photo ID research is particular. This is a fin whale here in this picture, but we'll talk a little bit more about the work with our humpback whales. So at the moment, we probably have the biggest database of or catalogue of humpback whales in the EU. And for every couple of years, we get occasional sightings from UK and in particular Scotland, and whoever it was, whether they're from Shetland or Orkney or your area, I'd be saying, listen guys, you need to pull all these together into and start sending them over to the North Atlantic humpback whale catalogue. And it was hilarious because we had been doing this for 20 years and we had never matched a single Irish humpback whale to a known breeding ground. And for us, that was the holy grail. Because, you know, we know these animals are faffing around, you know, UK and Scandinavia, and they go to Iceland and Norway. But where were they born? Like, from a conservation perspective, unless you know where a species is born, you're doomed to help protect them, because, you know, that's where animals, populations are most vulnerable, really, on the breeding grounds. And so Bryden Thomason got a picture of a humpback whale. So I said to Bryden, I'll send it to our colleagues. Here's their email address in Allied Whale, who curate the North Atlantic humpback whale catalogue. And he did. And 24 hours later, they came back and said, oh yeah, we recognize that humpback whale from Guadeloupe and the West Indies. And I thought to myself, you bastard, how dare you? You only know about them because we told you. We've been doing this for 20 years and we haven't matched one. And in 24 hours, you guys had matched your first humpback whale. And I just thought that was just wonderful. And now Lindsay and others are really curating a fantastic resource there, based primarily in Scotland, of your own humpback whales. We've matched, you know, definitely we are noticing, like many countries around the planet, a year-on-year increase in humpback whales. And these are animals that are returning not just year after year, but returning decade after decade. I mean, some of these animals, in fact, this one here in the back has been coming here since 1999. So these are animals that we have documented returning to the southwest of Ireland. This is County Kerry here, to the southwest of Ireland. In fact, it's nearly as nice as Western Scotland, but maybe not quite as nice as Western Scotland. You guys just have that dramatic mountain backdrop. You know, we kind of have more hills. You guys actually do mountains quite well. Yeah, but we are seeing more humpbacks arriving into our inshore coastal waters, and they're here to feed. And they can arrive as early as late March, early April, and we can have them all the way through to Christmas and even into January. So we can actually have, a bit like yourselves. I know there's been right over Christmas and into early January, they had humpbacks there off eastern Scotland, and you know, as can we. But it is an amazing story. Just a horrible graphic here, but it just illustrates where exactly we have matched our Irish humpback whales too. And of course, when I say Irish humpback whales, they're not Irish humpback whales. They're not born here. They're only passing through Irish waters. But this map is getting more and more difficult as latitudinally we find them as far north as Svalbard, which isn't even the Arctic, it's actually high Arctic. You know, all the way down to, we've matched 3 now to the Cape Verde breeding ground off West Africa. So it's getting increasingly difficult for me to illustrate that on a single map without everything getting quite small. But you get an idea there. Of where we're matching these humpback whales that are visiting Ireland too. There's a really nice geographic spread. Just to move on a little bit to odontocetes. I don't like calling this species orcas. I gotta admit, there's something that rankles a little bit with me. It's a little bit fluffy. I prefer to use the term killer whale, but I got this phone call off this gentleman here from WDCS in, when was it? In the 17th of December, 2009. And he kind of introduced himself to me and he kind of said, oh, I gather you're big into killer whales. And I've been worked with killer whales in British Columbia, Vancouver, with the Johnson Strait resident population and the Rubbing Beach area. I'd spent the summer out there, and I'd been down to Patagonia for about 3 months down there on another project. But killer whales kind of, they're kind of everybody's favorite cetacean, aren't they, I guess. But he was telling me about he wanted to do this big feature for British Wildlife magazine, and I was saying, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, listen, listen, I'm running out the door right now because I needed to do an effort watch off my local headland now, which was Galley Head in West Cork. So I was kind of a little bit dismissive, but he wanted to talk about the West Coast Community Group, your resident killer whales. I went out to Galley Head, set up the tripod, had the flask of tea. I was sipping away, and I saw something a surface disturbance, and I looked again. I put the scope on it, sharpened the focus on it, and I saw this killer whale with a great big flopped over dorsal fin, and I thought to myself, my God, this can't be. And then I saw a second killer whale, and I saw a third. I counted 7 dorsal fins. I couldn't make out John Coe, but the fact that I had floppy fin was good enough for me, and the fact that it was all 7 was likely to be pretty close to the entire Scottish Hebridean group. I came back and I said, I suppose I better ring Rob and tell him. So I rang Rob and I said, Rob, do you remember that conversation we had about 2.5 hours ago? And he just couldn't believe it as I went out to a headland randomly, unplanned, and saw the very animals that we were talking about. So we've been following John Coe now since he was first recorded here. He's the lead animal in this picture on the right. You can see he's got that very easily discernible chunk out of the trailing edge of his dorsal fin. But first confirmed by Peter Evans in the Hebrides back in 82, 83, and I think as Siobhan said, Peter Evans actually named John Coe, but an amazing animal. I've just plotted here last night a graphic that shows you all the sightings of the Scottish West Coast Community Group that we could actually validate by images. So these aren't all killer whale sightings; these are just sightings of that one particular group. So you can see that they are fairly widespread. Sort of, well, yeah, pretty much we've recorded them in all waters. We've never actually confirmed them interacting with, say, the likes of minke whales, which I think has been confirmed up in places like the Minches. But we've very little real evidence, hard evidence on what they're predating on when they are in our waters. But you would think, you know, with so many minke whales around in particular. I mean, we did trips last year, research trips and commercial whale watching trips, in particular in May and June, where we would have seen 50, 60, on occasion 70 plus minke whales on a 4-hour watch. They're kind of silly numbers. You know there's something epic happening when you're counting whales in dolphin-like numbers. But the minke activity here, it's getting, that peak season seems to be getting earlier and earlier every year for minkies and for humpback whales. But we are just interested that it doesn't seem to have caught the notice of killer whales, which are intermittently turning up in Irish waters. And it's really interesting when we get a killer whale sighting. I immediately, you know, let colleagues in the Hebrides know about these sightings. And it's quite common that, oh yeah, 5 days later they turn up again off, you know, Mull or Port Patrick or something like that. So, you know, they do make it back to the Western Isles remarkably quickly, even if they are a long way away down in the southwest of Ireland. So highly mobile predators, but a bit like your bottlenose dolphins, it's great that we can share such an iconic species. Our boat, the Celtic Mist, opens up wonderful opportunities for us. We've gone as far north as Iceland 3 years ago. Yeah, nearly 4 years ago, where in search of Irish humpback whales we actually sailed around Iceland. So we did a full sort of 360 around circumnavigation of Iceland pretty much. And we did find Irish humpback whales up off Husavik in northern Iceland, just on the very edge of the Arctic Circle. So would we go again? Yeah, we probably would. It'd be fantastic to see if we can find Irish humpback whales even further northwest, perhaps off Greenland or places like that. But I might need a bigger boat than the Celtic Mist to take us to Greenland, I think. Maybe we'll borrow a Silurian, but I think they're about the same size vessel. But listen, there's wonderful opportunities there for us to explore and make fantastic discoveries. And this was just a great opportunity now to get out on this expedition to Iceland. Crazy country, wonderful country, and you know, interesting people. And it seems like they've even made a decision to stop whaling from 2024, which is fantastic news, because of course, you know, these are shared humpbacks or shared animals. I remember I was doing a whale watching trip years ago off Grundisfjordur in sort of southwestern Iceland, and the researcher was, I overheard a conversation where she'd been talking, and Conor Ryan's name popped up in conversation, who was who was our science officer who went over to you guys. And Conor Ryan had taken a photograph off the Western Isles of a minke whale that they had matched to Grundisfjordur. So it's just amazing. This, you know, all our whales are sharing, you know, are traveling widely, and they are a shared population. So it requires often a joint approach to their conservation. And here's Conor Ryan here. I think he was probably a year into the job, looking on at the Irish Humpback Whale catalogue, which is something he was, when he was doing his PhD, humpbacks and fin whales and their feeding ecology was very much Conor's forte. This same Conor Ryan was in Orkney a couple of weeks ago, where they documented 1,000 fin whales off Orkney, but it was South Orkney in the South Antarctic. So we all misread it. We go, Jesus, that can't be. Conor Ryan, 1,000 fin whales off Orkney. He's having a laugh at this stage. And then somebody said, lads, I think you're missing a key word there. It was South Orkney. And the video, absolutely insane. Everywhere you looked, just blows peppering the horizon. The biggest number of fin whales we had down here, we reckoned we went out on a one day in one area, we had 40 to 50 fin whales. But certainly when you're talking sort of those sort of numbers, it's just incredible. And on that same trip then, our crew from the Celtic Mist gave a lovely presentation to Eva. I'm not sure if Eva is still with you. That was Deirdre Slevin, and Eva has this very attractive Charlie Phillips picture of a bottlenose dolphin leaping over her head. But it's we're very excited about, you know, what's coming down the line, and, you know, sort of there is great potential, you know, for our two organizations to collaborate on field work, and you know, let's you know, maybe use this as a launch pad for things to come in the future. But I've kind of possibly overshot Nikki by 5 or 10 minutes, but yeah, so onwards and upwards, and thank you for listening.